court case.
Thank you. So we're back, huh? Townspeople are back for yet another trial.
Excuse me, they're
All
supposed to
rise.
rise when you come in?
All rise.
Oh, they did not rise.
All right.
Well, this is night court, right? All right, so just to go down the case, Mayor Maloney. Where's Miss Maloney? Hello? Miss Maloney, come sit. And no one offered her a chair. All right, you guys all may be seated. All right, today we have Miss Maloney on trial for murder. The defense is arguing that, well, she's temporarily insane, or she was in a moment of shock in this murder. The prosecution, of course, is going to try to prove that Miss Maloney murdered in cold blood, calculated kill. I have the team members, so we're just going to start presenting cases. Let's start with the defense team. Hunter, defense attorney. You coming up? You have a question? You have evidence?
I think the prosecution has an opening statement.
All right, let's start with the prosecution's opening statement, please.
Jurors, close your eye. Picture you're a 6-month pregnant wife and you've been drinking during the day, and your husband that you worship has just pulled the rug out from under you saying he'll be leaving you. That is the worst news you can possibly expect at this moment. Your pregnancy hormones take over while you're really drunk, and so you act out in revenge. This was a cold-blooded killer. Okay. So please, give justice to Mr. Maloney and find her guilty. Thank you.
Does the defense have an argument? Opening argument?
Yes.
Let's hear it.
Just that.
No.
It's a lot. It's our life we're talking about here.
Okay. So you're right.
2 lives.
We, the defense team, are going to prove that Mary Maloney here is guilty by the reason of temporary insanity. In the story, Lamb Slaughter by Roald Dahl, Mary Maloney's husband, Practical Maloney, comes home to find his wife son. Mary Maloney welcomes him home with her open arms, offers to cook him dinner, but he rudely declined multiple times. He then begs to tell her some shocking and heartbreaking news. It could have been he wanted a divorce, or it could have been he was cheating, but we don't know. Mary goes to go get a lamb out of the cook for dinner. She finds out her husband looking at her through the window. Without a thought, a pause, a glance, she carelessly swung the frozen-legged lamb and whacked him across the head. In shock, Mary goes to the market to get peas and potatoes. She comes home to find her husband on the ground in a crazy position. She called the police about her husband. Many people run to the scene. She told her story to the cops. They did a thorough investigation but found nothing. Mary invites them to eat supper that she had prepared. They climbed multiple times, but soon gave in. They started to eat it and soon finished it. All in the other room, Mary begins to giggle. Would a sane person giggle when they're feeding investigators the murder weapon? I think not. Most people would sit there quietly considering a film. They're maybe put together. Because the lambo leg was, but they wouldn't feed the people the murder weapons. Mary got away with it. It says on page. The funny thing that he remained standing there for at least 4 or 5 minutes.
Defense, your opening statement is running out of time. Prosecution, do you want to call your first witness?
All right, let's start with the prosecution. They're testifying a psychologist for their team. Taylor? Taylor, can you get another chair, please? Over here.
Here we go.
the psychologist?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am? Really? This is the 1800s, right? You'll be prosecuted, or you'll be being asked questions by who on the prosecution team?
Okay, I'll do it again.
All right, Ms. Mazzucchelli, come on up.
Hello, Taylor. How are you today? I'm doing fine. How are you? Was Mrs. Maloney insane?
No.
Okay. The definition of insane is also not knowing right from wrong. Did she, Mrs. Maloney, know right from wrong at the time? Could have her drinking and her pregnancy hormones been the factor of why she killed her husband?
Possibly, yes.
Thank you. I rest my case.
I have one quick question. You know, how would we, I guess, understand or interpret the giggle at the end? You know, the confession and what we have for evidence suggests her going about her day. I mean, clearly, this is you know, a traumatic experience for anyone. Yet the giggle at the end is why we're all here. Is there anything to say about this giggle?
I think that she was, you know, she didn't think that
Burping? What?
she didn't think that anyone could hear her. I think that she just like wasn't really paying attention, and she kind of let her, you know, self slip, and that could cause her to go to jail. You know?
Pregnancy hormones?
No, I don't think
Okay.
it's
I've heard that's a lot today. All right, thank you. Does the defense have their own psychologist? Would you like to cross-examine them? Or is there another psychologist the defense has? Okay.
Is anyone from the defense going to respond to the judge? No. Okay.
Who's cross-examining? Can I choose anyone? Do you have? Are you guys ready? Come on, sit down. Does anyone in the defense have a question? Thank you. I mean, this poor woman's on trial for her, you know, for her life here in a. No, you should have called Spark Law or something.
Okay, so what did Miss Maloney see in the Rorschach test that you took?
She saw raindrops and an umbrella. And most people on the ink blot saw the flowers and birds and an eye, but she did not see any of that.
And what do you think the giggle was from?
I think when the officer said that it was, the weapon was right under their noses, she was still kind of in shock and insane, so she started laughing.
Can we cross-examine?
Yes, please come up, Ms. Mazzucchelli.
You say Mrs. Maloney was insane, but for the insanity rule to apply, Mrs. Maloney could not have known right from wrong. And the quote I have showing here that she knew right from wrong was, as the wife of a detective, she knew quite well what the penalty would be. And she also said, what were the laws about murderers with unborn children? Mary Maloney didn't know, and she certainly wasn't prepared to take that chance. So that does show she knew right from wrong, does it not?
Well, she had already killed her husband, and she realized that she was insane. She was insane when she killed her husband, and then she started realizing that after she had killed him, so she had to do what was best for her unborn child and cover up the murder.
Could you have made a mistake in calling her insane?
All of my information came from the text or Mary Maloney herself.
Okay. So it's not possible that the drinking and the hormones got the best of her.
It says at the beginning that she wasn't drunk because at the beginning it says she only made a weak drink for herself.
But she did still drink, did she not?
Yes, she did.
I rest my case, Your Honor.
All right, I'd like to kind of move, thank you. Pulled off the Rorschach, I like that. I'd like to kind of go through some of the evidence that we do have. We do have somewhat of a pretty good compiled document here that we can go through about this day. I'm going to call certain people up from the defense, okay? And then we're going to hear from the prosecution. But I do feel that the defense needs to really show me where this temporary shock or insanity. The prosecution has done a pretty good job outlining, the drinking, having the psychologist with the Rorschach test. But this is a tricky case. This is something that we understand. A detective is dead. Miss Maloney is with child, and she's on trial nonetheless at this establishment, the night court. So let's hear from the defense, okay? I have the defense team. All right, so I'm just going to call certain people up. Please just present some aspect of information or quote from the narration that's going to help support this insanity plea and shock. I've seen very little evidence of it, and I think the court owes it. We've all here. All right. Sierra, come on up.
As a reminder, you guys have some of the evidence you compiled right up there. So some of her actions and some of her words are right up there that can support your case.
We'll start with one piece of evidence. Why are we here today? What is showing shock or a state of insanity?
I have a quote. When she walked across the room, she couldn't feel her feet touching the floor. She couldn't feel anything at all except a slight nausea and desire to vomit. Everything was automatic now. This quote in the text shows Mary Maloney in her state of shock after the bad news that she's told by her husband. She's beginning to drift away from reality. When she walked across the room, she couldn't feel anything. She says everything was automatic, like she was no longer herself and like she wasn't even there, like she was a robot. This shows us her clear shock that we know led to her temporary insanity. Someone who is sane would obviously be shocked by the news, but wouldn't kill someone over it. So a different side effect took over.
Excellent, excellent. I love the transition or comparison to a robot, the automation, the lack of feelings after this moment. Miss Maloney, do you remember anything, up into, including the kill or including whacking your husband with the leg of lamb?
No, it was all just a blur that happened after you told me. Oh, I miss you, Patrick.
Oh, and Miss Maloney, we'll have you out of here at some point today. We don't know if that will be in shackles or not, but all right. Thank you, Sierra. Thank you. Let's hear from. We have Connor. Come on up. Now, do you guys come as a package defense team, or did Melissa Maloney hire you individually? You're the people specialist, right? You've been known to convince jurors? All right.
I have a quote after she killed him.
After she killed him.
It was extraordinary how clear her mind became also. She wasn't thinking straight until now. She didn't know what she'd done, and then her mind became clear.
Okay, so up until the clear mind is indicating that she was not clear, or there was cloudedness during the kill. Okay, so from this point, if her mind is clear, did she or did she not make the necessary steps to cover this murder up?
She did, but she didn't know right from wrong during it.
So during the kill, she didn't know right from wrong, but after,
She realized what she did.
and the covering up was to save herself?
The baby.
To save the baby. Miss Maloney, what did you think that would happen to the child?
I honestly don't know. I was just scared that maybe my child would have been killed along with me, and that could never happen.
Miss Maloney, we are going to have to get to the point where we discuss what was said, from your husband. That is the only thing that the court is a little blind to, and I think that there is a lot of potential motive in what was said. But at the same time, You know, a lot of people argue that the kill is wrong regardless. But if we don't know what was said, how do we fully understand the motive for this kill? So we do have to kind of get to that at some point. I don't want to upset you, so I'm warning you now. All right, I would like to hear from one more defense before we shift it to the prosecution. Abby.
Hi.
Hi, Abby. What's your last name?
Marino.
You're the other Abby Marino.
Okay, so I have a question for you. What was your first thought when you told us the news?
I was just so shocked. I couldn't believe my Patrick had done this. I was so hurt. But I still loved him. And I still love my Patrick.
Thank you, Abby. All right, prosecution. Let's shift over. The last question was asked is, how did you feel after the news? So I assume the prosecution will hopefully have some questions or some information that shows a little less of this shock, a little less of this insanity, and more of this calculation, this deliberation. We've seen this before, time and time again in this court, the nature of the narrator having two sides. When we really break this down and kind of look at it, the mindset of this, this killer, the crime is obvious. The murder has been done. But where do we send Miss Maloney? How do we send her somewhere to get help, or do we send her somewhere to be punished? Let's hear from Declan.
Quote the story, it says, she carried the meat into the kitchen, placed it in a pan, turned the oven on high, and shoved it inside. She did not hesitate. She immediately took the murder weapon and attempted to dispose of it by cooking it.
Ms. Maloney, do you have anything to say to this? I mean, this is pretty good evidence here that the murder weapon happened to be what's ended up in the oven. And, I don't know if we'll have time to get any of the police department on the stage here, but they might say that the herbs and how you treated the meat was great, and it was a great meal, but this was still seen as the murder weapon.
Well, my Patrick, I just wanted to cook dinner, And after I had done such a terrible thing, I did not realize I was doing. I just wanted to complete my thing for him. My Patrick.
You buying this?
No.
All right, next up in the prosecution, Emma. Emma, will you be asking a question today, or do you have any evidence?
I have evidence.
All right, please present it.
All right, on page 212, she says, so I've killed him. This shows that she knew what she was doing, and she knew what she had done, and what the consequences were going to be.
All right, could you cite that again? What's the quote again?
So I've killed him.
So I've killed him. Again, Ms. Maloney, is this in a state of shock, or is this, are you aware of what you've done? Is this the clear mind, the clouded mind, sad about Patrick, upset about Patrick?
I was so upset about my Patrick. I loved him so dearly. And I realized that I had killed him after my mind was just a blur. I didn't know what I was doing. I just love my Patrick.
Emma, I think it's about time it's Emma, right? Emma? All right, I think it's about time we ask the fatal question, or what may be the fatal question. Do you know what this question is, Ms. Maloney? Does anyone know what this question is, Ms. Mazzucchelli?
What did your husband say to you before you killed him?
Let's say this long. What did your husband say to you? We've all woken up at 2 in the morning. We're here in the night court. We've seen the trial of the century 2 weeks ago. We need to know this.
My Patrick had been with another woman. And that woman was my older sister.
Order! Order! like to, step back a minute. We here are trying to figure out if Miss Maloney was in a state of shock. And with this evidence, or this, Patrick's news to her, would have brought her there. Could it have brought her there? And I think that we do need some witnesses to help support this, or corroboration of this. Maybe treatment in the past. Do we have anyone, any witnesses to be used? Jack Noonan? Jack Noonan, can you come up?
Your Honor, if it please the court, the prosecution would like to call Megan to the stand.
Megan, can you?
And on the Bible.
Does somebody else want to ask the question?
Megan, could you explain to the court your relationship to Miss Maloney?
My name is Margaret Anderson.
Margaret Anderson, the sister?
Yes, I'm her younger sister, not her older sister.
The news that just got sent out to the court. Are you the sister in question? That's with her husband?
No, that's her older sister.
And where is the older sister? Could we find her, or is she anywhere?
No, she is trying to avoid because she is
Yes.
nervous.
Yes, I would be nervous too if I was just implicated in court. Sit down. Exactly. Okay, so you're the younger sister? Do we have questions from both sides?
Did you feel that your sister, Mary Maloney, was acting suspicious before the murder?
Oh, no. She was very normal.
When did you last see her before?
I saw her about a few days before. I visit her fairly often.
Now, is this, we see her out clearly upset, but the Mary Maloney that we've all kind of learned to understand, through this, piles of evidences, she was a cheery woman. Always happy,
Yeah, she was
willing to
very
please.
happy. Yeah.
But who was like this always?
Yeah, she was always like that.
Always.
Except for the time she got her anger issues as a child.
Anger issues as a child.
She would have very sporadic anger issues. Actually, I have a drawing I drew, and before the trial, I went to my school, my old middle school, and got a doctor's note that they sent out because she had to miss a day from the doctor.
So in these anger issues, Miss Maloney, do you remember these moments when you go into these fits of anger?
I just feeling of rage would come over me, and I couldn't remember anything that I had done.
Feeling of rage because you would never get into that art school you wanted to?
No, I drew that.
Oh, you drew that. Okay.
I was about 5 when I drew that.
5, okay. So you may have gotten to art school. And this here is excuse. Okay. If any issues with anger, please contact my office. Okay. And this is from what grade?
I think she was in 7th or 8th grade.
Okay. Do you have any questions for the sister?
Yes, Your Honor.
One more, please, Iris.
Was there anything unusual in Mary and Patrick's relationship?
No, he didn't really seem, there wasn't anything unusual. He seemed a little bit off, but I assumed it was from work because he was often tired after work.
Okay. Does anyone from the defense want to ask Ms. Maloney a question? Come on up.
So I have a quote, and it's, maybe if she went about her business and acted as though she hadn't been listening, then later when she sort of woke up again, she might find none of it had ever happened. And this just shows that Mary was very shocked and she was really upset, and she was kind of like hoping that she hadn't heard any of it at all, and like she was kind of just like imagining it. And my question for you is, when Patrick told you the news, did the thought of killing him begin right then, or did you swing at him with no thought at all?
No, I would never think of killing my Patrick. It's just that he told me the news.
lost myself, I lost my mind, and I didn't know what I was doing.
Yes.
So it says that the violence of the crash, the noise, the small table overturned, helped her bring out of her shock. And it says here, shock, temporary insane or shock. And so you guys can see it says shock, right? Okay. That means she was in a shock, and so she was temporarily insane.
Oh, please, take your evidence. I've heard 2 trials here in the last couple weeks on this insanity, and I've seen two teams of lawyers, both cases, really kind of play this out. I mean, the facts are the facts. We have a murder, and it's unfortunate that we're finding ourselves here really poring over decision making, poring over internal thoughts, confessions, inconsistencies, and it really makes for a hard trial. And certainly the jurors, it makes for a hard decision that has to be made. We all have everything we need, and hopefully the jurors have heard enough today. Is there anything else anyone would like to present before I give this to the jurors to decide? Mr. Aaron. Mr. Smith, right?
If Mary Maloney was a calculated killer, she would have already planned the murder. But you've already heard her story. She didn't plan it. She wasn't thinking when she slammed the leg of lamb at her husband's head.
Miss Maloney, how often was a routine day? Your husband comes home. Was this a routine day? You getting him whiskey? You seem to be a little concerned with his temperament, that you wanted to please him at all times. Is there a reason? I mean, yes, you want to please the person that you're in love with, but were you pleasing him in a way because you were afraid of what would happen if you didn't please him? If he didn't have his whiskey?
No, Patrick, I just wanted to be happy at all times, and if I didn't make him happy, then I wouldn't be happy myself.
Okay. So you live to serve?
Yes.
Prosecution, do you have anything to rebuttal here? Mr. Rockwell?
So, on page 2, paragraph 11, I have a quote, and she said, "All right, so I killed him. As a wife of a detective, she knew quite well what the penalty would be. So she knew that there was going to be consequences, and she was aware that what she did was wrong."
Adam, right?
Yeah.
I think that the fact that you just mentioned that she's a wife of a detective, really, that's, when I was in my chambers going over this, that's the one thing. Who else would know better how to arrange a cover-up? Who else would know better how to act and behave than a wife of a detective? The stories he must have come home and said, the ways in which people have gotten away with things, the clever aspects that he considered in a crime may have all ended back up to Mary. We'll never know for sure, 100%. But the court of law does not promise 100%, right? But we do have to make a decision. But I do think that it's a very interesting thing that the husband, although a police officer, and it's a crime, and it's a crime, no matter what his job was, but the ability for her to then proceed after the murder, have the detectives in the house. They ate the lamb, for crying out loud. They ate the lamb. Sorry. But it does seem that this would help, doesn't it? Thank you. All right, so it's time to deliberate, jurors. All right, let me just remind you what you'll be deliberating. The defense here has argued today that Mr. Maloney's maltreatment of his wife led to her temporary insanity. We've heard some of their testimony from psychologists. We've seen how she's done an Rorschach test, and we've seen evidence that supports that this moment of shock, this automation, this robotic sense of movement is evidence of this shock. And then we have the prosecution, who's arguing here that this was no temporary shock, just as much as my kids are shocked when Paw Patrol didn't get recorded. That this is nothing more than a calculated kill, a designed murder, or at least even if a designed cover-up. So jurors, you do have your work cut out for you today. In your I guess, statement, I want you guys to declare whether you are suggesting insanity, which the defense is arguing, or shock, or do you see this as a calculated kill, in which the prosecution is arguing? If you guys could make your declarations so we can move on. Ms. Maloney will have you out of here soon enough. How many months is it now? 6. Mr. Boomhauer, how do you vote today? Or plea? What's your, yeah, I guess it is a vote.
Yeah. Calculated kill.
Calculated kill. Evan.
Calculated kill.
Miss Molly Malone.
Calculated kill.
Tamara?
Calculated kill.
Here? What is it? Calculated kill.
Temporary shock.
Temporary shock. Temporary shock. Temporary shock.
Was that 3 or 4? Did it?
4.
4, okay. We'll just go back that way.
Temporary shock.
Is that, all right, shock?
Calculated kill.
Is that 3 right there, kills?
Yes.
Leah, calculated kill?
Calculated kill.
I missed everybody.
I got it. I got it. All right. Miss Maloney, today is the day you go to jail. The prosecution, the jurors have declared at least 10 of them to the 5 that tried to say shock, that this was a calculated kill. Ms. Maloney, there are facilities in the jail that will, in the prison that will help you. There are state employees and social workers that can help you in this trying time, and certainly with child. We will not decide today how long you'll be going to jail, but may God have mercy on your soul, Ms. Maloney.